When it comes to villains cruel and sleazy, designing for games should be easy. Take your main character or overall theme, and make their rival the opposite extreme. Add mechanical challenge to this brew, and you've given players something great to chew. It's laughably simple, this rewarding design, yet so many baddies feel dull and benign. Be it lacking in gameplay, outshone by story, fulfilling their role with no flair and no glory, villains can end up meaningless buffoons, like your Solidus Snakes or your Dr. Bad Boons. Fiends need to go above and beyond to form with their players a sinister bond. Not only is a thrilling showdown required, not only must mirroring their foes be inspired, but personality must be ever present to make words, actions, and image coalescent. Such charm, such appeal is the twisted rite of legends, Nefarious, Emmett Selk, Blight. Yet perfect villains that cover all bases can be found in the most unexpected of places. For despite how its villainous fruit hangs low, one of the best belongs to Banjo. A simple villain, there's no doubt there, but beloved by those who plundered her lair. Witty lines abound, a sarcastic edge, and really tough boss fights players would allege serve as a base for this villain obscene, flaunting her character loud on the screen. The ruler of Spiral Mountain is the one. The Great Witch, Gruntilda, is... But it's fun! Oh, if I must. Grunty's great. This is how all of her appearances play into her sense of vanity, and despite being a simple villain, lets her be a memorable one. Let's get right into it. Gruntilda Winkybunion makes her debut in Banjo-Kazooie, serving as the game's main antagonist by kidnapping Banjo's sister, Tootie. And when you look at her, yeah, there's not all that much to be impressed by. A design taken right out of a Spirit Halloween catalog, unless you're like, ooh, purple striped socks, the height of character expression. Grunty isn't gonna exactly be winning any awards for her appearance. Add on to the fact that she's a 3D platformer boss, a genre that could host a whole parade of forgettable, semi-functional villains who bow out of the gaming zeitgeist immediately after doing their job. And not much really needs to be done with or expected of Grunty. Fit the theme, get beat, get paid, get hurt. But Gruntilda takes her very simple identity as an ugly cartoon witch and explores it for all that it's worth by revolving herself around one singular concept: vanity. Gruntilda is obsessed with her appearance, having always compared herself and been jealous of her sister, Gruntilda, for her good looks.
Oh baby, oh baby, oh baby.
But rather than simply be the joke of, ha, the ugly villain is trying to be pretty, ha ha ha, Grunty revels in her appearance, convincing herself that her gross, wasteful, and outright putrid lifestyle is the height of fashion. She takes pride that her favorite smell is sweaty gorilla feet, gladly subscribes to Warty Girls Weekly, brags that she can blow up balloons with her butt on command at any party, her favorite show is Big Brother because everyone on it is as awful as her. This is canon. Grunty is an unabashedly disgusting creature, and she loves it. This indulgence in her own slatternly ways mixes with her quirk of speaking almost entirely through rhyme to create a character that doesn't keep Grunty defined by her simple design, but makes the design defined by her. She isn't just another fairy tale witch. She's everything you imagine one of them to be. Grotesque, whimsical, sing-song and incantation in words, and hopelessly deluded with her own power and image. And when those delusions are challenged and she hears, "Aw, this little bear might be cuter than you," Grunty decides that kidnapping children is suddenly a really good idea. But Gruntilda doesn't want to kill Tootie. No, she just wants to put her in a beauty-sucking machine and then let her go home a little more ghoulish than usual. Banjo-Kazooie is an incredibly low-stakes adventure, almost farcical in how much Banjo is willing to go through to prevent his sister from having a bad makeover. But it's what makes Gruntilda's presence all the more invaluable to the experience. Grunty isn't just a bystander as Banjo barges into her home. She's actively watching him, commenting on his progress, mocking him at every failure, and lamenting his successes as beginner's luck. All through rhyme whenever the heck she feels like it. The witch isn't the first video game antagonist to feel like a constant presence, but that doesn't stop her from being any less effective in dominating the player's consciousness. Gruntilda's lair is one of the most memorable hub areas of its era, filled with murals, mosaics, and sculptures of the swinish spellcaster, many of which Banjo gets to bust up to gather jiggies and progress through the witch's domain. All the while, Grunty is pontificating on how stupid she thinks Banjo is, how she can't wait to give him a pounding, how she always gets winded going up all the flights of stairs in her lair as the player continues ascending, how when she's drained Tootie and made herself thin, she's gonna scarf down junk food and do it all again. Tasty. All the while, the player is finding her sister, Gruntilda, hidden in the lair, learning all of Grunty's disgusting secrets for some ambiguous reason. Gruntilda's lair is as much of a character as the Big Witch herself. Every inch explored, adding to the villain, reflective of her eccentricity and narcissism. Heck, her final challenge for Banjo is a quiz show, Gruntilda wanting to prove that Banjo is exactly as dumb of a hick as she's been saying all game. Planning to end him with the one thing that would give her the most satisfaction, getting to gloat about herself. And when Banjo starts answering personal questions about Gruntilda right, she is shook! Getting to watch as her surefire trick questions blow up right in her face, and watch her get outsmarted by a dumb bear. She's so devastated that she doesn't even fight back against Banjo after he wins her dumb show, running away and hiding in her room until Banjo manages to collect enough jiggies to finish one last self-portrait of the witch. Banjo-Kazooie is one massive ego check for the homely hag. The player waiting for the chance to humiliate her all game before, after one surprisingly tough battle, they knock her off her pedestal and bury her in hubris. And very large rocks, where she can never harm anyone ever again. Banjo-Kazooie, Grunty's Revenge, picks up with the witch 2 months later, unable to move the big boulder placed on top of her. So, Grunty does the only option that sounds reasonable to her, sending her soul to possess a mechanical backup body in order to kidnap Kazooie and take her back in time to the 70s so she can prevent Banjo and Kazooie from ever meeting by enslaving the entire Breagle race and working them to death. Obviously! And it's in Grunty's Revenge that we really get to see one of Wartbrain's most defining aspects, her petty desire to shape the world in her image, putrid and ugly. Other Banjo series games show Grunty's effect on the world fairly clearly. Clanker's Cavern has its native wildlife horribly mutated, while a massive living trash compactor slowly degrades in a pool of sewage. Rusty Bucket Bay is a cesspool of nuclear waste and spilled oil, Grunty proud of how uninhabitable she's made the waters for Banjo to swim around in. Witchy World is a rundown amusement park serving the most unsanitary food, hiring pickpockets, and outright bragging about its appalling safety record. Grunty Industries is a waste-spewing nightmare of OSHA violations that actively pollutes other worlds and seems to only export plus-sized underwear. Heck, Mumbo Jumbo, good friend and best shaman in-game, is only rocking a skeleton head because Grunty cursed him for trying to steer her away from the dark arts. The former star of the Handsome Shaman Institute shackled to a life of bachelorhood through the witch's appearance-obsessed magic. But Grunty's Revenge sees the mechanized mage be a lot more direct in her uglification of the world. Breagle Beach is partially turned into a prison camp, Grunty forcing all the birds she can find to mine in her quarry until they presumably die. Parts of Bad Magic Bayou have been transformed into training camps for gruntlings, littering the, admittedly still pretty ugly marsh with tires and garbage. Spiller's Harbor, once a cute little tourist trap town, has been completely overtaken by Grunty's signature pollution. Homes abandoned and in disrepair, no one willing to stay outside of pieces of crap, and the family of feces-based people that they try to scam. And most notably, we see the first foundations of Gruntilda's lair being constructed. Above the ruins of a monument to the Jinjo regent, King Jingling. Spiral Mountain was the ancestral home of the ever-helpful and mystical Jinjos. And Gruntilda moved in and decided, no, her face should be the only one overseeing this lovely countryside, deposing many of its indigenous people and trapping all of those who refused to leave within the worlds of her lair to beg for help. Grunty is self-indulgence personified, stepping on anyone who happens to be in the way of her pursuit of whatever she wants, barely noticing the lives and land she ruins as long as her whims are satisfied. Well, until her hubris finally catches up to her. Building your home on top of a monument holding the sleeping god of the magical creatures you personally cast away was not the brightest of ideas. And even traveling through time, Grunty doesn't care to correct that mistake. Banjo is more than happy to send her spirit back to its rotting corpse, where she'll finally be unable to hurt anyone ever again. 22 months later, she murks Banjo's best friend. Grunty isn't playing around when she rises from her grave in Banjo-Tooie. Her alleged beauty reduced to nothing but bone in the 2 years her body remained underground. Once freed, Grunty can only think of immediately enacting her revenge. She strolls right up to Banjo's home and blasts the thing to pieces, barely missing the bear and bird, but ruining Bottles' marriage through the power of murder. She then flees the scene in a drilling tank, bulldozes the Grey Jinjo household for kicks while the family is still inside, scatters the rest of the Jinjos all across the Isle of Hags, takes control of a life-draining laser, and zombifies that king she kicked out of Spiral Mountain 20 years ago to use his life force to restore her beauty. Now that is a lot of havoc to unleash in just the intro to Banjo-Tooie. And it serves to highlight perhaps Gruntilda's strongest aspect as a villain. She's a buffoon, but she is undeniably powerful. No other character in the Banjo series comes close to the Bony Crone's magical prowess, her sisters needing to use technology and spellbooks to match her, shamans needing to borrow the power of magical creatures to get things done. Mumbo needs to steal some of Grunty's power to get any transformation magic working in Grunty's Revenge. Gruntilda is undeniably the most powerful creature in all of the Isle of Hags, able to use her immense power to live out her fantasy of being self-proclaimedly beautiful, and silencing anyone who'd say otherwise. And this isn't just purely in-universe. The player gets to feel the full power of the witch, too. Banjo final bosses are astronomically more difficult than the rest of the game. Showdowns with Gruntilda always being multi-phase endurance matches, with precious little in the way of healing. Banjo is expected to take a pounding in these showdowns with the witch. Players trying to hang on to whatever life they can with each attempt, as Grunty is glad to knock them down a peg, phase by phase. But she's not done messing with you just by being a hard boss. She's glad to wreck a player looking to cheat the game and find an easy way to beat her, too. If a player starts inputting cheat codes in Banjo-Kazooie's treasure chamber, Grunty will call them out for their weakness, warning them that if they continue, she'll delete their save data. And if 3 codes to skip major chunks of the game are entered, the witch will make good on that threat, deleting all of the player's progress on their file the next time they get a game over or quit out of the game. Oh, but you haven't learned your lesson? Banjo-Tooie features Madame Grunty's tent, a tiny shack that rewards Banjo with a random fortune every time he enters. And by fortune, I usually mean Grunty beats up Banjo and he loses some life. Now, this would just be a pointless Easter egg, but there is a minuscule chance that she will give you a cheat code that unlocks hints on how to collect every single Jiggy in the game. Something that the game itself directly alludes to. Players striving to get everything out of Banjo-Tooie are invited to spend potential hours walking up to Gruntilda and getting beaten up for free, hoping that she'll grant them the one key that they need to say that they've done everything. Oh, and the code doesn't work unless Grunty gives it to you. And she can close up her tent after any visit for renovations, making the player waste even more time for no reason because you gotta get that last Easter egg so you can go, oh yeah, I've seen everything in this game, don't you? That's what you do in collectathons, right? You gotta get everything! That's what Banjo taught me! Gruntilda is so proud to flaunt her power and take every opportunity to lord it over others, even the player, bullying them into submission until they realize their helplessness and just give up. She is almighty. And everything she does is, once again, undermined by her own pride and vanity. There's no reason that Gruntilda should even be capable of losing to Banjo and Kazooie. She is multiple leagues more powerful than both of them. It's only her tunnel-minded obsessiveness that ruins her. Banjo-Kazooie shows all of the enemies she's gained over the years finally uniting against her. Mumbo glad to help out anyone who'd give his magic the time of day over cauldron breaths. The Jinjos she's long abused rising up to break through an invincible barrier that the Baron Bird couldn't possibly penetrate. And divine intervention being needed to finally take her down. One that she brought upon herself, of course. Grunty's Revenge sees the crone hitting herself with her own spells to finally destroy her mechanical body. Banjo once again abusing her overconfidence to send the witch packing. Hey gang, Peer from the future here. This isn't true. You can just run around until the spell disappears. But I'm not going back to correct this because this GameFAQs guide by I Love Reigen gaslit me into believing you had to run the spell into her for like 20 years. And I feel a little insecure. I want to give him a little crap. I mean, like, she stops to laugh all the time in Grunty's Revenge, and that's when you hit her, so, like, the whole point of hubris of the section still stands, but... God! I'm just mad, okay? But in Banjo-Tooie, oh, Grunty outdoes herself in just how self-indulgent she can be. She regularly abuses her servant and recurring mid-boss Klungo until the bruised and battered minion with unshakable loyalty decides to seek other career opportunities out of fear that his wife will leave him if he stays in his dead-end job. Gruntilda's sisters, her saviors from years of boulder-based imprisonment, are forced into yet another game show for Grunty to prove that no, Banjo is definitely an idiot, she will get the last laugh and humiliate him, and then she kills both of them when they lose at trivia night.
I'm losing to a bird!
She angrily tears out the pages of her living spellbook for helping Banjo during his previous quest, making Cheeto go, okay, fine, I'll give him the good cheat codes this game. You want regenerating health, Banjo? You got it. And after being embarrassed again, needing to be reminded that she should flee like a coward and actually put up a final boss fight, Grunty confronts Banjo and Kazooie in a massive tank, completely invulnerable to harm, decked out with all sorts of weapons and war crimes that she has no idea how to use. Grunty has killed or scared off everyone who could help her be an effective threat. So obsessed with herself and her revenge that she left no one else to tell her how to be competent, leaving her with a boss battle where she's constantly sabotaging herself and failing to figure out how any of this technology works. And she blows up the tank and herself at the end.
Oh no!
If absolutely everything in Gruntilda's world didn't have to revolve around her, if she was even a smidgen less selfish, if she didn't want to show herself off on the grandest stage she possibly could, and share the spotlight with no one, the witch would have killed Banjo hundreds of times over by now. But she isn't. She hasn't even accomplished it once, and we love her for it.
Failure.
Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts shows that Grunty, now reduced to a magical talking head, has learned absolutely nothing from her defeats, spending 8 years fruitlessly hopping to Spiral Mountain with only thoughts of revenge on her mind. This routine is so pathetic that even God decides it's time for things to change. The Lord of all video games himself letting Banjo and Grunty face off in vehicle-based showdowns for the fate of Spiral Mountain. And while Banjo manages to adapt to new skills and ideas in a new genre, Gruntilda can't. Continuing to just muck up more worlds, build more minions, and make very predictable and uncreative rides. Planning to make Banjo's home into another freaking grungy factory. And guess what? She loses again and gets banished to the Activision dimension. Who'd have seen that coming? Gruntilda is a simple villain, one incapable of empathy, learning from mistakes, or doing anything besides admiring herself and decking anyone who ticks her off. But she's great. Most memorable baddies have a big, grandiose moment, or this memeable line to define them. But Grunty just has a couple of tough fights, some silly trivia games, and a feeling. Banjo games are defined by Gruntilda. Their tone taking after how silly and sardonic the witch is, their worlds carefully painted to illustrate her influence, their hardest challenges often coming at the hands of the horrid hag, or Canary Mary.
I hate you.
And all of this is made infinitely stronger as Gruntilda ties every last element she introduces to the series back to her vain, egotistical nature. On paper, it couldn't be easier to make a character like Gruntilda. A simple amusement with very traditional trappings to serve as a fun throwaway villain. But making that character memorable in spite of their simplicity, warping the world around them, and teaching children what a striptease was way before they were ready, that is something far more rare and infinitely more valuable. Take pride in even your simplest designs and ideas, and you're well on your way to creating something that people are really gonna love. For in the face of villains riddled with inanity, It's Gruntilda Winkybunion who designs for Vanity.